saw that.
Never know with technology. How did you know that? I don't know. You can't.
Has he switched it over yet? Probably not.
You don't control it. You can put it into present and it should. There you go. Yeah, I think you can leave it like that.
You know, it just popped up.
That's because you're trapped.
Good evening, County Supervisors, staff, and guests. Before we start this evening, I have an announcement to make that Supervisor Patrick Latour has been named the Umpire of the Year by the Wisconsin's Fast Pitch Softball coaches for 29 years of umping. So I think we have a celebrity among us. All right, we have roll call. Please sign in. Anybody in?
Nick. Where's Nick?
Okay. We got 2 absent. 3.
Well, yeah, this is
18, yeah. So you have 18 present and 3 absent, so we do have a quorum. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance if you are able? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I need a motion to approve the agenda. I have a motion by Supervisor Budde and a second by Supervisor Steer. Are there any questions regarding the agenda? If not, please vote your ballot. We have 19 yes, 0 no, 2 absent. It has been approved. Moving on to approval of the July 23rd, 24th minutes. I have a motion by Supervisor Steer and a second by Supervisor Miller. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? If not, please vote your ballot. All right, we have 18 yes, 0 nay, 2 absent, so they have been approved. Are there any communications? You have one here, which is a thank you note from Kathy Kleckner, who was the wife of our former supervisor, Ed Kleckner, thanking us for our help and him attending meetings and also for the funeral. Public participation? Nothing. Okay. All right, on special business, you have review and approve the 2024 Calumet County Strategic Plan Initiative. That was sent out in your packet. Todd can go over there. Does anyone have I have a motion by Supervisor Budde and a second by Supervisor Diedrich to move this along. So are there any questions or anything regarding the report? Would you like Todd to go over it? Yes? No? You all are happy with it? Okay, vote your ballot. We have 19 yes, 0 nay, 2 absent, so it has passed by a majority vote. Moving on to our special business, Chris Meuer and Jason Pausma will provide a broadband update presentation for us.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Name's Chris Meuer, Planning and Zoning and Land Information Director, as well as Jason Pausma is with me today, too. He's the Economic Development Director. So we had requested to do a presentation for you guys today to talk about broadband, as well as some of the funding opportunities that are currently being provided by the state as well as the federal government. So getting into the presentation, before we get too far in the weeds, I wanted to go over a couple different definitions for you first. So the first one would be download speeds. So download speeds, what that is that's the rate at which data is transferred from the internet to your device. So an example of that would be when you're watching movies on a streaming service like Netflix. You're essentially downloading that movie directly to your device. So then upload speeds, that is essentially the opposite of download speeds then, and that's the rate at which data is transferred from your device to the internet. So some examples of that would be when you're doing video conferencing, or if you're doing online gaming or sending emails. So taking a look at a couple of the different types of broadband service that we see throughout the county. The first one would be DSL, which is digital subscriber line. That's using the existing copper twisted pair wiring, which your phone lines have come from for the past 100+ years. Speeds from DSL services, they vary widely. It really depends on the age of the wiring itself, the number of users, and the distance to the provider's data hub for what your speeds will be. Your download speeds will typically range from around 128 kilobytes to 100 megabytes, with most of the county's users that we see are averaging around 15 megabytes. One of the other main service types that we see is cable. That's provided internet service through copper coax cables, which is the same lines that deliver cable television as well as voice telephone services. Those speeds can typically range from 10 megabytes up to 1 gigabyte in service. Those speeds can also vary significantly. It really depends on the number of users that are in the area as well as the peak hours usage, and sometimes it's due to the distance from the carrier's facility itself. Cable internet, we typically see a large disparity between download and upload speeds. With an average upload speed of our main carriers that we have in our area, it's around 13 megabytes. The other main type that we see, which is also the most sought after type, is fiber. Fiber optic or fiber internet for short. What we see the main difference there between coaxial cable and fiber is that it's able to provide symmetric speeds. So what that means, if you've got a 300 megabyte service, then you would have both 300 download as well as 300 upload speeds that are being provided to you, where you will not see that typically with a coaxial cable. Fiber is often viewed as a future-proof option for broadband service, as it can reach speeds up to 10 gigabytes in service, which is approximately 5,000 times faster than the average speeds that we see typically throughout our county. One of the other main points that we see is fixed point wireless. What this is essentially a satellite dish that is on a tower that is pointed directly at a satellite receiver, either on the person's home or on a utility pole. What this is, it's a signal that's transferred between both devices, and it does not see nearly as well download and upload speeds, but it provides options for people that maybe cannot have a line directly to their house because it's cost prohibitive or other issues. Some of the main restrictions that we see with this is that it has to provide line of sight directly to the tower, to your device itself, so it's limited to a couple miles range. Other ones that we see as well that I won't get into are satellite as well as cellular service options, and there's all pros and cons to each one of those. Taking a look at some of the background that we have for our current broadband services, when you look at the maps that I've provided here, the orange locations, they indicate a high percentage of service locations that are unserved or underserved. So what that means is the unserved locations, they do not have an internet service provider, which is meeting the 25 megabyte download speeds and 3 megabyte upload speeds criteria. The underserved locations are internet service providers that they at least have that level of service that's capable of being provided at their location, but they're not able to meet the 100 download and 20 upload speed criteria, which the FCC states as meeting served criteria. The purple locations on the map, they contain the majority of locations that are considered to be served by the Public Service Commission, and the blue is somewhere in between. So we primarily see those underserved areas around the town of Brothertown and Stockbridge, also portions of Woodville and Brillion, and we have a little bit as well in the town of New Holstein. Looking at some of our prior federal and state funding obligations that are currently being provided to the county, the colored areas on the map, they have received those prior funding commitments. Looking at the darker purple, that is a region that is being provided by TDS. The lighter purplish blue, that is a region that is currently being covered by Charter. Within these regions, the internet service providers, they're required to provide service to all locations that have been awarded within the grant area. So that means if there's anything in that area, a residence, a business, they have to at least offer that service to it. They don't necessarily have to connect, but they have to provide that service to them as an option. And speaking with Charter, as far as an update on where they are at in their progress, it sounds like they are planning to have service provided to all areas in the bluish purple there by the end of 2026, with them starting on the Fond du Lac County border and working their way north. We're going to have an update meeting with TDS later on this week to see where they're at in their progress too. Looking at other county projects that we've done previously, in 2019 we partnered with Ensight, and that was to connect the village of Hilbert and the cities of Chilton, New Holstein, and Kiel with fiber for business use. It reached approximately 150 businesses, and it provided a backhaul route for Ensight. In the case if they had a line that was cut, they had additional service that was being able to be provided through that route instead. In 2022, the county backed bonds that were issued by Fond du Lac County in partnership with Bug Tussle to connect tower locations with fiber service, and they also, excuse me, they also provided residential service along the middle mile with their fiber service. So something that we had done recently within the last year and a half is there have been some funding opportunities that have been provided by the state as well as the federal government. In anticipation of that being awarded, we wanted to get an assessment of what the current broadband state was within the county. So we essentially created a broadband task force, which contains several members from the county itself, in addition to several municipal members, excuse me, as well as a school district member. And as part of that, we decided to create this survey, which asked a few questions, as well as got speed test data and a couple other information points from residents to determine what issues they were potentially having with broadband. As part of that survey, we had 900 responses countywide with average speeds around 47 megabytes for download and 9.8 megabytes for upload and 69 milliseconds of ping. What ping is, it essentially measures the time that it takes for a signal to travel from one system through the network to another system. So it's kind of latency within your actual network itself. When you start talking about video conferencing, anything that is 50 milliseconds or less is typically a good speed that you want to see. For the 421 responses that we had, that was within the rural areas, which was primarily the townships. We had average speeds that are around 38 megabytes per second for download and around 5 for upload, and that's 68 for ping. Primary issues that we also saw from the residents were just the lack of options that were provided within their area. Maybe there was one carrier or there was only satellite options, as well as affordability and just poor service in general, just a lack of consistency in service that was being provided. So when looking at ISPs and some of the main issues that we see and why they're potentially not developing broadband infrastructure here throughout the county. So the left map itself is a population distribution throughout the county itself. Really, the primary areas, if you remember from our previous maps of where we're seeing issues, it's in the less densely populated areas. So internet service providers are not able to make a profit, essentially, if they were to build out the network specifically by themselves. The other map is looking at a type as well as a depth of bedrock. So what we typically see here, it's along the Silurian dolomite bedrock area, which is the red portion on the map, and the darker portions would be more the shallower soil regions that we see too. So when you start talking about shallower soils, when an internet service provider is doing an install in regular conditions, they're typically looking at around $60,000 per mile for an installation. That's typically plowing directly into the soil. When you start talking about shallow soil situations, when you have to do directional boring directly through, you can be looking at costs potentially upward of $120,000 per mile for the installation. So it's not practical in most situations unless there's something else kind of contributing to assist with it.
Okay. So I'm going to start by talking about some of the impacts that having good internet service has on healthcare, telecommuting, education, and the local economy. Broadband has become more vital in the broadband world of healthcare, especially in rural areas with aging populations. It allows for telemedicine or telehealth with your doctor that provides easier access to doctors and remote patient monitoring. It can also improve communication between doctors and patients, and it can reduce the costs of providing service. So having good internet also allows employees to work remotely. This really took off during COVID. Working from home can improve your work-life balance. It can also reduce commuting costs and time. And if you work remotely, you can access jobs from around the world. You can really work anywhere if you have a job that allows you to do that, which further can lead to attracting skilled remote workers in any part of the world where they're maybe looking for a higher quality of life. And oftentimes that's rural areas. People may be looking to get out of urban centers. So this chart on the bottom of this slide also shows different occupations, and it is from 2021, so things have changed a little bit since then, but it shows different occupations that offer full-time remote work. So for example, the top one is software and IT. 48% of employers back in 2021 offered remote work full-time. Another example would be finance. 40% of employers offered remote work full-time in that field. So broadband in the home continues to change the field of education by expanding traditional classroom walls. Gives students access to remote learning and a wealth of other resources. Can improve communication between the parents, students, and teachers. And it can prepare students for a more technology-driven economy and workforce just by having that experience working with technology at home and the other resources that are available by doing that. And finally, research has shown other economic impacts of having good broadband service. For example, you can have higher property values in rural areas. We know that buyers are looking for good broadband in rural areas. There's a survey done in Northwest Wisconsin that said that having good internet service was very important to 90% of buyers when they're looking in the rural areas. It can also help retain younger population in rural areas if you have good broadband. It can also, like I mentioned, attract new residents or skilled labor. It can also increase the amount of new business formation or entrepreneurship. And it can even enhance farming profitability where precision agriculture technology can lead to higher crop yields. So, and finally, better broadband coverage can also lead to a higher per capita GDP. I think the study showed that if you had a 10% increase in broadband penetration, it can have an over 1% growth in GDP. So the program that we're really talking about and focusing on today is the BEAD program. You may have heard of that. BEAD stands for Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment. That program came out of the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was passed in 2021. And in that bill, $42.5 billion was allocated to broadband nationwide. Wisconsin got just over $1 billion of that pot of money. And in Wisconsin, that program is being administered by the PSC, the Public Service Commission. And the goal of that program is to provide fiber to all unserved and underserved locations. So basically, if you don't have 100 megabyte service, you're not considered to be served. So anything less than that is something that you'd be targeting with this program. We've been working so far with other counties through the New North region. There's like 18 counties that we've been working with and coordinating with on this project so far. So this map, and I realize it's kind of hard to see, but there's a lot of little dots on this map. Each of those little dots represents one of those unserved or underserved locations that's eligible for this BEAD funding. If you remember in one of Chris's previous slides, it showed areas of that had prior commitments that TDS and Charter had, kind of on the more western part of the county. This map accounts for those. So these are the eligible ones that don't have those prior funding commitments that are still unserved. We are expecting to have at least 1,200 of those eligible broadband service locations. Those are also known as BSLs. You can see that they're clustered in the rural parts of Calumet County. And I guess we don't know, let me back up. The PSC is going to release a map of project units soon. They don't really know yet when that's going to be, hopefully in the next month or even less than that. But they're basically going to take the whole state and carve it up into almost like, it could be census blocks, it could be census tracts. They haven't really said how large they're going to be or how many units are going to be in each BSL. So Calumet County could be divided up into one giant project unit. You could have smaller project units. So it could be, you could have 4 project units that sort of focus on a cluster. And this is important because the internet service providers, the ISPs, are going to take a project unit and they're going to have the opportunity to bid on those project units, which I'll talk about a little more. So how can local government support this effort? Oh, shoot. So each bid of a project unit will be scored, and there's going to be 100 possible total points. A lot of that local government can't do anything about. It's kind of between the ISP and the state. There's things like fair labor practices and pricing and affordability. But local governments can affect 12 points of that 100 points. 7 of those points can come from county government in the form of a letter of support, or it could be a resolution. And that letter of support or resolution has to be formally passed or adopted at a public meeting, has to show up in the minutes, and then that would be part of the application package that an ISP would submit to the state for one of the project units that they're bidding on. So that 7 points can come from Calumet County if they want to support, you know, let's say it was TDS or Charter is going to submit a bid. The county government could support, you want to support one of them and not the other, depending on which bid was more attractive, I guess, to the county. Another 5 points of the 100 points can come from the towns, villages, and cities that a project unit might be located in. And kind of the same thing, they have to work out, engage with them, and they can also get a letter of support from those local communities. So local governments can also provide financial support to ISPs, but it is not required and does not affect their score. So it has nothing to do with the 100 points. If you remember that project units will be formed, an ISP is going to evaluate each unit to see if they want to submit a bid. Some of these units are going to be more attractive to the others based on maybe Charter has infrastructure right next door to it and they can just extend it. The ISP has to contribute a minimum of 25% of the total cost of a project unit. So for example, if a project unit costs $1 million in their estimation, the ISP would be responsible for a 25% match that. So in this case, they would be responsible for at least $250,000 of a $1 million project unit. They can do more. That would make it look more attractive to the state. So the question is, will the BEAD money be enough, that 75% match, will it be enough money for an ISP to bid on a project? If you remember, they're expecting a certain amount of revenue in the form of subscribers when they install fiber. So they're looking at a certain ROI on their investment, right, on that $250,000. So either that ROI is going to be enough or it's not be enough for them to bid on a project unit. So there could be a gap that needs to be filled for them to get their ROI before they bid on a project unit. We anticipate the cost of installing fiber to vary greatly depending on such factors as population density, the soils, and the depth of bedrock. So again, local government financial support in the form of a loan. It could be a loan. It could be cash to an ISP that you would reimburse them after the project is done. That's not required, but it could be an incentive for ISPs to bid on less attractive project units. So where are we in the process and what's next? Chris and I will continue our outreach and education with the local towns and villages to talk about this and let them know what they need to do to get that 5 points that we talked about. Looking at the schedule here, the ISPs are now just starting to form and write a letter of intent letting the state know that they're interested in submitting bids to different project areas. And there's going to be 3 rounds of bidding that's going to take place between basically now and...
Participants are waiting in the lobby. To admit all participants in the lobby, press
Star 2 1.
You want me to wait?
Sure. Simeon, probably.
Are they in?
Okay.
Good. Okay. So there's going to be 3 rounds of bidding. The first round, we anticipate all the low-hanging fruit, the most attractive ones are going to be bid on. And then the state will kind of come back and say, okay, now you guys need to take a look at these more difficult ones or not as profitable ones. And maybe they'll offer a higher amount or something like that. We're not exactly sure how it's going to go yet, but there's going to be 3 rounds of bidding. So just kind of keeping that in mind, the first round of bidding is due by January 3 of 2025. So in the next few months, Chris and I will be talking to these internet service providers about different project units that they might be interested in. And by then, by that January 3 date of 2025, they would have to have that letter of support if the county wants to support them in that way, or that resolution of support. So that might be something that we'll be coming back to you in the next few months to talk about as we kind of negotiate with the different ISP providers. So, so by next August 1 of 2025, all of this has to be wrapped up. The state's going to submit their package to the federal government, the NTIA, and awards will be given to the different ISPs, and they have 4 years to build out whatever project unit that they were awarded. So that is all I have. Thank you for your time, and do you have any questions?
All right, Supervisor Huffsberger?
For Jason or Chris, how does the municipality pay again for their 25%? Is that a paid, an estimate of how many people are going to use it? Or is that payment dollars that the county and
So they don't have to pay, first of all. If they choose to pay, again, well, use the example of $1 million, right? If a project unit costs $1 million, the ISP is responsible for 25% of that. So the ISP might come back to a local government and say, hey, are you willing to contribute and share the cost of that $250,000 to make it more attractive? So I don't know if that answers your question, or, because I know like I can talk about maybe like what Door County did, some of their towns.
Is that counter talk about are they expected to, they don't have to pay anything, but if they do pay up to 25%, they get a higher rating on the.
It doesn't give them any points, but it shows them that they are really cared, invested in getting broadband to their residents.
Looks better too.
Yep, yeah. So it helps like the optics, I guess. Even though on the 100 points you don't get any points, the optics help. It shows that they're committed to it.
It's really needed in certain areas, a couple of my areas, I might add. So you guys, one of you guys are gonna talk to the town board, talk to them, look at them, and talk to them the way they can. All right, good.
Yep,
Thank you.
yep. We're going to do that in the next month.
Thank you.
Yes.
Supervisor Diedrich?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to clarify something. I think previous Supervisor Hofsberger misunderstood the 25%. That was the ISP paying 25% of the project cost, not the township. So the 25% was not a township cost. But I have two questions, at least initially. One, some years ago when we were looking at this, I was told, probably at a WCA convention, that when you break down the census blocks, all right, if anyone in that census block had good service, the whole block was colored green. Has that changed?
Yeah, so they previously looked at it from a census block level. Now they changed it to the BSL. I forget what that acronym is specifically, but it's serviceable locations. So now they look at it from an address level instead of from a census block level, which is a vast improvement on what they did previously.
All right, thank you. That's terrific. The second question goes to this ISP support that county and or municipalities would provide for the score sheet. Is that something that would be delivered to each ISP individually, or could a county government show support for all the ISPs? In other words, is it a one-on-one support, or is it a group support?
That's all to be determined. There's no requirements. Some counties talked about potentially saying we're going to give each eligible BSL broadband service location $100, right? And it's just going to, if you have 50 BSLs in your project unit, you're going to get $5,000. Some counties might say, well, that we know there's going to be, or we think there's going to be some project units that won't need any financial incentive, but there's going to be more difficult to reach ones that might require a little bit of extra help and target or save their money for those more difficult project units. We just don't know yet because the state hasn't released the maps and don't know what the project units are going to look like. So those are a couple of different.
Okay, so wait and see and learn more. The third question, I think this is my last one, Chris and Jason. Bug tussle, okay, the county supported several years ago a group that came through and tied the cities together, and the county came in with some money to support that. The county also supported Bug tussle in this bonding thing with Fond du Lac County, and they're laying fiber, or they're planning to lay fiber in the county. And I've seen Bug tussle at various venues, such as a county fair, showing people where they're planning to run their lines, and if people were within 1,000 feet, I think was the number, of the line, they would get signed, they could sign up and all that happy stuff, all right? Is that still progressing independent of what you just talked about?
So this map on here, that is actually Bug Tussle's Oh, okay. Well, the map that I showed before, showing prior county projects, that was actually for Bug Tussle's region. That was showing their actual fiber installation plan routes. So I believe they have already provided service to the highway shop, as well as provided service to the courthouse here directly. They also are planning on providing service to the county park, and they're currently doing a temporary service installation right now because they haven't gotten quite that far yet. But yeah, they're planning on running up 3257, kind of cutting over through Potter area, running north then over to City of Brillion, kind of cutting back through Forest Junction and looping back down the east side of the lake. So it's still planned from what we've heard from Bug Tussle. It's just taking a little bit longer than what they anticipated. So they've got a lot of counties now that they're working with, so they've got a lot going on. But it sounds like it's still planned for them to do it.
Okay, I lied. I got another question. The Bug Tussle project, right, moving along, and that's going along. Are they allowed to get some of these federal dollars for that existing project, or that's off the table as far as they're concerned?
Yeah, so they technically won't be able to do anything for that existing project per se. I mean, it wasn't necessarily state or federal funds that they got for it. So it's a little bit of a different funding pool, so it doesn't make those serviceable locations ineligible from that perspective. But a lot of the areas that they're also providing service for are covered by other grants too. So a lot of those locations will be getting service one way or another.
All right, so basically, they could look at this map and say that.
Yep, they could.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation today, gentlemen.
Exit announcements disabled.
Okay, there are no other questions. All right, then we'll move on. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to resolutions. Resolution 2024-11.
Resolution ratifying the 2022 through 2024 collective bargaining agreement between Calumet County and the Deputy Sheriff's Association, introduced by the Administrative Services Committee.
All right, I have a motion by Supervisor Budde and a second by Supervisor Miller. And Supervisor Diedrich, would you speak to this resolution?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. It's been a long time in coming. We finally have resolution with the bargaining unit for our sheriff's employees. So we would have passed it with the Administrative Services Committee. Now it's coming to the full board because it would require a ratification of this agreement, and then it goes to the membership for voting. It also will involve back pay because they have been working without a contract for several years. And we were assured at our meeting, and I'm sure we can speak to it if there are questions tonight, that there is money in the budget. It's going to be handled. It's not going to be a financial issue for the county. I mean, granted, there's a financial issue, but it's not going to be unanticipated, and the funds are there, basically. So any other questions? I'm sure that Kimberly, Michelle, the sheriff, Todd can address those. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Diedrich. Supervisor Voigt, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So as I read this, what I took from it was that they've done collective bargaining, but they're looking to continue doing collective bargaining. Is that correct?
Michelle will answer your questions.
And I'm probably going to have more for you.
No,
just
that's
to
fine.
let you
No,
know.
yes, they are a collective bargaining unit currently and have been for many years, and wish to continue to do so.
Okay, so as I know it, unfortunately, many other unions that are government employees, such as teachers, are not allowed to collectively bargain. I am against collective bargaining for what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Police should not be allowed to collectively bargain if no one else can. So, I don't care if it's a state law. This is my opinion. Anyways, so my question is we're going back, but then we're also going forward. So if we were to vote no, which I'm planning on doing, because of the fact that I don't believe that only certain entities should be allowed to collectively bargain when others are no longer allowed to. That means we're allowing them to collectively bargain through only through 2024, or is it more than that?
No, they are an association, and we will, if this is denied tonight, it means we go back to the table or we go to arbitration. We actually had arbitration scheduled for September 18th of this year because we could not come to a tentative agreement, which we now finally have. It does not stop them being a collective bargaining unit. It just means we keep having to go back and then come back to you again for approval until it gets passed, and then they receive their retroactive pay and we carry forward. If this gets approved today, then we begin processing the back pay and the other changes that we've agreed upon with the association through this agreement, and we immediately start bargaining for 2025 and beyond.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Supervisor Miller? Did you have a question? Okay. All right, all right, we're okay. All right, there are no other questions. Please vote your ballot.
Simeon, you want to ask?
Simeon, are you online?
Aye.
Thank you. So we have 19 yes, 1 no, 0 abstain, 1 absent, so that resolution has been adopted. Moving on to Resolution 2023-12. All right, well, it's a resolution amending the 2024 budget for the Wisconsin Assessment Monies Community Managed Grant.
She's got it.
Hmm?
Beth has it.
Beth has it, okay. Okay. I have a motion by Supervisor Schwalmberg and a second by Supervisor Diedrich. Are there any questions regarding this resolution? Seeing none, please vote your ballot.
Oh, I guess I don't have to say anything.
Supervisor Lochran, thank you. Supervisor Stuckman.
Just so I'm clear, I got the zoning resolution up in mind.
Okay. Simeon.
It's this one that's currently showing us the lamps.
Right, the resolution that we're voting on is the one amending the 2024 budget for the Wisconsin Assessment Monies Community Management Grant. All right, we have everyone. Simeon has voted yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we have 20 yes, 0 nay, 1 absent, so that resolution has been adopted. Moving on now to the ordinances. Ordinance 2024-05.
Ordinance to amend Chapter 82 zoning code on certain property in the town of Woodville, property of Frank Family Farm Homestead Trust, introduced by the Planning, Zoning, and Farmland Preservation Committee.
All right, I have a motion by Supervisor Miller and a second by Supervisor Elliott. And Supervisor Huffberger, would you speak to this ordinance, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Joseph Frank, agent for the Frank Family Homestead Trust, is requesting to rezone approximately 2 acres from the exclusive Ag District to the Agricultural Residential District, and approximately 80 acres from the exclusive Ag District to the exclusive Agricultural Preservation District in the town of Woodville. The rezone is intended to permit the creation of a non-farm residential parcel compliant with zoning and land division ordinances. The town of Woodville supports the proposed rezone.
Okay, are there any questions regarding this ordinance? Seeing none, please vote your ballot. Supervisor Johnson?
Aye.
Thank you. We have 20 yes, 0 nay, 1 absent, so that Ordinance has been adopted. Moving on to supervisor reports. Anyone have anything to report of any meetings they last attended? Not seeing any?
They have some.
Hmm?
I don't think
All
they
right.
can press right now.
It's not pushing up. You
There's
have to
request.
repress your request to speak.
They're on there. They're just
All
not
right.
showing.
Supervisor Steer.
Schwallenberg.
Wallenberg, who is first? Mary. I'm not getting it on my.
And we can't do it here either,
There
so,
we
yeah,
go.
so, woo-hoo, okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Parks, we okayed Phase 2 of the mountain biking trails. This will be paid for by the bikers. Part of the trail has to be done by a professional planner to go over some certain areas of the park. We also talked about, Adam is going to look into camping options for the NFL draft. If you've been following the news, EAA just recently is opening their campground for the draft, and Brown County has two. So Adam was going to be doing some investigating as to the possibility of us doing that also for our campground. Our Brothertown Harbor camera, we're waiting, there are a couple trees have got to be removed from the sighting. The Ledgeview remodeling will start. That's going to change some things that are happening out there. They usually have a haunted cave tour for Halloween. That actually will be earlier in October. The annual meeting of the Friends Group will be held at the Eagles Club and catered by the Eagles. Otherwise, the staff did an excellent job of that meal too. So our cabins are open with, I personally stayed in one, and with usage of cabins, you find things, certain things that maybe you would like to change or whatever, or add to, but we are restricted because of the fact that they're handicapped accessible as to how much you can put around for storage or things. There really isn't a lot of storage for things in the bathroom or whatever, but we have to leave open spaces for wheelchair. So Adam is looking at some other things, and also about possibility of a TV connection out there, but we don't have, you have to use your hotspot or whatever, or he's looking at Starlink, I think it is too. Health and Human Services, we took a look at the aging plan draft for 25-27. The staff has done an awful lot of work into it. It looks very good. There was a discussion also about the opioid funding, of possibilities of what to do with that money. There were some suggestions from administration and other things that we talked about, the possibility of doing things with. Nothing is set in stone. If you have any suggestions of things you think would you like to spend the money on, talk to Todd about it. So we also changed our, just upped our rates a little bit for vaccinations, but if you noticed on the, if you had a chance to look at the agenda, there was something on there called child support birth costs. If a child is born out of wedlock, they try to get the father to pay for half the birth costs. And they're finding out some counties, it's up to the county whether you get that money back, go after that money. They found that, and I think it's the bigger counties have found that by dropping that, the fathers are more apt to pay child support versus creating some real bad feelings and not a good relationship with the family. So that's something that that we're looking at doing. It's not a lot of money for us. I think it was like $3,000 or something like that. So, and it's proven to be very helpful to get the fathers to pay child support instead. We also discussed our budget, and that's something all of us do just before our department heads go to Todd with the budget. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Schwallenberg. Supervisor Steer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recently attended the Veteran Roundtable, and our own Michelle, VSO, and a couple others gave an excellent presentation on veteran benefits. Also at the event was somebody named Aldrich, 100-year-old veteran. He flew in 1943 on a mission bombing the oil fields in Romania. He was in great shape. So, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Steer. Supervisor Latour.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last week, we had the landfill committee, and after 2 years and a lot of setbacks, the gas site is now going to start working. They're out there testing it. You can probably see the flame every night that they have on the portable truck, so that's going to be starting. They should have all the permits and all the testing done by September, and then it should be functional right after that. They will also be having an open house on September 17th at the gas site, if anybody's interested. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back in July of '22, some residents that live on County N between Highway 114 and Highway 10 requested additional striping or no passing zone on that 9/10 stretch of highway. It went through the Traffic Safety Commission, it came to the County Highway Committee, was brought up again this past May. They appeared at a meeting here and passed out a letter to all of us requesting a yellow striping for motorists traveling south so they wouldn't be passed while they had their left turn signal on. They live on the east side of N. So anyway, at the August 14th Highway Committee meeting, we passed to stripe that equal to the one that was going north, and I noticed that this was taken care of on Monday. So they are in a safer situation now that they requested. It was quite a battle going from committee and suggesting here and that. So just letting you know that the Highway Department took care of that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. I just have a couple announcements. October will be the budget hearing, and it's the second Tuesday of the month. You're all invited to do that, and just to moving ahead, I want to announce that November 4th will be the county board meeting, and that will be at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's when we will have the public hearing for the budget and fix up all our year-round things that we need to do. So just put those in your calendar so you know what time that will be. And that's October 8th, and that would be at 8:30 in the morning. Okay, that's all I have. We have the administrator's report. Was there any questions regarding his report? I don't see anything. Okay, the administrator would, excuse me, Joan.
Hi, thank you, please, Madam Chairman. I was interested in that new Calumet County Leadership Program, and it said it was starting in August, if I read that correctly. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Is it-
The 14th was the first day, I think, right, Jason?
So is it successful? How's it going? How many
Well-
people?
Good question.
We've had one of 7 sessions so far. The first one went good, so it's probably too early to tell if it's successful or not, but we did get the number of people that we're hoping to get. We're hoping to get 12 to 18 per cohort, and we have 14, so.
Good.
We hope to do it quarterly, offer it quarterly moving forward, but, it's going to depend on level of interest, too, from businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have an appointment to the Appleton Fox Cities MPO Policy Board. You heard about that resolution last month. And the county administrator recommends the appointment of Matthew Budde to that MPO Policy Board. So I'd ask for confirmation. I have a motion by Supervisor Diedrich and a second by Supervisor Elliott. There are no concerns or questions. Please vote your ballot. Simeon? Aye. Thank you. 20 yes, 0 nay, 1 absent, so that has been approved. Your appointment?
Can I just clarify one thing?
Sure.
I just want to clarify regarding the budget meetings. So October 8th is the Administrative Services Committee meeting, and we have invited every county board member to attend those in the past, and we would continue to do that. And just for your calendar's sake, the November 4th meeting is your actual county board meeting, so that you won't have the one, whatever it is, the third Tuesday, just so we're clear on that.
Thank you. All right, there being no other business, we've completed the agenda, so I will move to adjourn this meeting, and thank you for your attendance and safe travels home.